Ladies, gentlemen, and nightfarers of all ages, Elden Ring Nightreign is a game with a very varied level of challenge. At first, it can be quite tough, but as you start to get more and more relics to choose between, your experience will start to become a lot simpler. Your win consistency will go up, your dependence on RNG to find good equipment during your expeditions will go down, and in general, you'll just feel a lot more powerful compared to the game around you. But there is a sliding scale with this, where some relics just make the game a little bit easier, and some combinations of relics on the right character absolutely bust it wide open and feel like a near cheat code of consistent power on every single expedition. So today we're going to go over another 3 really powerful builds for different Nightfarers in Elden Ring Nightreign, with the idea being a setup that will give you a really high baseline of power really early on every run, regardless of what you actually find during it. First things first then, we have what I like to call the hot sauce Wylder build, focused extremely heavily around fire damage and taking advantage of the upgraded effect relics you can get for Wylder's skills to dramatically improve both his ultimate and his character skill, and then working in a good fiery ash of war if you've got it too. The main thing that makes this function is just a relic with Wylder's character skill has follow-up attack while wielding a greatsword. This follow-up attack is a big sweeping fiery slash that does a good chunk of damage, but even more importantly, it has quite a large amount of stagger buildup too, and it leaves a fire added affinity effect on your weapon for a while after too, so that's bonus damage and fire damage. So this adds consistent bonus damage to our melee attacks, on top of which the base cooldown on Wylder's grappling hook skill is very, very low, so you can do this very frequently for high stagger, high damage, and of course the fire affinity on your weapon. We also have the effect for Wylder that makes his ultimate art leave behind a patch of fire on the ground to add on even more fire damage to the setup. And if your relic RNG has been blessed enough, you can then also work in something like starting armament has eruption, and from there you can just easily blitz the whole way through an expedition with your starter greatsword, upgrading it to purple as early as you can, and if it has eruption as an ash of war, it does fantastic stagger damage and leaves a patch of magma under it too. This as a combo just gives you access to a number of different high damage fire options together on Wylder, and loads of stagger buildup as well. And then because our starting sword is now an effective weapon, we can do the trick of hitting up a mine as soon as possible during your run, then finding a merchant and upgrading it to purple rarity super early for a massive damage bump that you can use before level 7. Pair all of this with some very nice survivability stuff on your relics too, like health regen from greatsword attacks or partial health regen from post damage attacks, and you've got something that can run through every expedition, any Night Lord start to finish, even if you don't find a single extra weapon as you go. But then of course this can scale to being even sillier if you find a good fire weapon along your route, or fire damage increasing passives on weapons that you can find as well. All that said, let's go over the specific relics for Wylder, and this is going to be incredibly RNG, but it's worth noting that while at least one of my relics is like an absolutely perfect role for this build would work just fine without some of the effects, so I'll stick to pointing out the main important ones. Follow-up attack after character skill is the #1 priority on a relic for this setup as far as I'm concerned. The next priority is starting armament has eruption. If you have those two effects, you will be a fire damage and stagger machine already, just those two things together. The next most important thing is partial HP regeneration on post damage attacks, as the level of comfort that effect adds to just sort of killing random little guys in your expedition is completely irreplaceable. Once you have these 3 effects, you're pretty much golden. Everything else is just a cherry on top type of bonus if you can combo it on relics that also have those 3 main ones. Things like the effect that leaves fire on the ground after an ultimate, or heal upon greatsword attacks, or even fire attack power up, which does make all of this even stronger, but is not required to make it work in the first place. Next up then, we have a build for the Duchess, all around just avoiding being targeted, applying Frostbite, and just general ailment buildup. Then just the general power of power stancing daggers, especially when it comes to reviving allies, as power stance daggers are pretty much the best way to pick someone up if they ever hit a 3-bar down, other than like guaranteed revive ultimates, of course. The central focus of the build here is the Knight of the Miasma relic, which you get when defeating the Fissure in the Fog expedition for the first time, which is Caligo, the ice Dragon. This relic makes Frostbite triggering nearby you put you in stealth. It changes your starting Ash of War to Chilling Mist, which also coats your weapon in ice to let you apply frost buildup with your general weapon hits, as well as just increasing your weapon damage in general while active, and the relic also gives you just increased attack power against Frostbite afflicted enemies. The stealth sounds like a real hefty gimmick at first, but when playing solo, you can use this stealth for easy backstabs against a lot of enemies, especially things like Banished Knights. If you get the Banished Knight Castle on your run, it's fantastic for, or just any backstabbable boss, it's great to be able to do this with. But in multiplayer and groups, when the stealth triggers, it just means that you will not be the character targeted by this enemy for that duration, which on Duchess means that you can pretty safely unload a bunch of dagger attacks really quickly. You can focus on timing your character skill perfectly, like looking at the amount of damage an enemy is taking actively and counting up how much is recent, and of course we can then pair that with the effect that makes dagger chain attack finishers trigger the weak version of our character's skill, and also just generic increased dagger attack power too. Then the cherry on top being the old classic partial HP restoration upon post-damage attacks, the rally mechanic, and just using that to make it generally positive to trade with dagger chain attacks and get frostbite procs. As for how you want to treat this during your expedition, the main priority is to keep ice on your blade at all times. Chilling Mist is cheap and it is bonus damage, even aside from the ailment buildup itself that it adds too. Generally, you want to try to use your character skill after a frostbite proc against bosses, as they do big chunks of burst damage when it triggers. Generally, you also want to try to get full chain attack combos in anytime that you go into stealth, especially where it should be a bit easier to do. For things to aim for as far as gear, you want to find a second dagger as quickly as possible so you can power stance them, meaning wield one in each hand and attack with both at the same time. The highest priority is if you can find a dagger that matches the Night Lord end boss's affinity weakness, whatever that is, just so you can match that damage type for the most important fight of any expedition. Otherwise, the next highest priority is some other sort of status on a dagger in general, either more frost buildup so you can speed up your frosts, maybe a bleed dagger or one with poison or things like that, just to let you mix it up a bit and really take advantage of the speed that we'll be attacking at. And then tertiarily, if you don't find the other ones first, would be a fire damage dagger. Fire damage removes frostbite after it procs, which then enables you to start reapplying frostbite immediately again. Doing this on purpose acts sort of like bleed procs, and so this is an option to use as well if you don't find the other dagger types first. For passives and powers and talismans and such, your biggest goal is anything that triggers off of successive attacks. Successive attacks give damage negation is one of the best possible passives you can find on Duchess for like on a weapon and have just in your inventory, or things like successive hit bonus talismans that give you bonuses as well are also incredible within this setup. But the idea is that you have a blade that can apply frost and a setup build around frost and not having your enemies actually focus on attacking you. Then you can upgrade and evolve from there during your run depending on what you find and what you want to be. As for the relics for this one, I'm using the yellow-green vessel option for Duchess, and we are of course using Knight of the Miasma, as mentioned earlier, for the frost synergies on it that are quite good. We are using the Crown Metal Remembrance relic for the chain attack reprise events and improved dagger attack power as a nice combo, and then the third relic is a randomly rolled yellow relic that has partial HP restoration upon post-damage attacks, as the most important stat if you have a yellow relic with that on it. Otherwise, just the best yellow relic that you can put in here to just sort of boost our output in general, or boost things like the character skill or your survivability if you want more of that. Then our third and final build of the day is actually a variation on one that we covered a couple of days ago, which is going to be full support Revenant. When I say it's a variation, it's because most of our choices are built around making Revenant a support and making her really good at keeping the group around her alive as a whole, but one of our relic choices is once again going to be used for Wraith Calling Bell in possession at the start of the expedition, because the Wraith Calling Bell is, in my opinion, just the best weapon for Revenant essentially, as funny as that is to say about something that isn't even a weapon, it's just an item. This item, when used, just has such a great FP cost to damage ratio, and a lot of the time, Revenant focused around spells will have FP sustain issues, so that is a really good thing to be able to have guaranteed from the start as an option. As well, it is just way more efficient damage per use than anything else you could possibly have at level 1. It is very good at level 1, and it is still reasonable damage even quite late inside of an expedition, even at higher levels. But if you find a nice faithy weapon to scale instead, that would be a nice option to upgrade to as well. That said, the main juice of this specific version that I want to talk about today is the support aspect of it. The big important one is a guaranteed relic, the final remembrance relic for this character, the Family Portrait, which has expend own HP to fully heal allies when using your ultimate, so you take a chunk of damage, but you fully heal all allies, which is especially good because the ultimate itself is of course also a guaranteed revive. So if you end up in a super stressful situation against like a Night Lord boss, you can pop your ult to pick up every downed ally and heal them to full instead of them being revived on like half health. This same relic also lets you trigger a Ghost Flame explosion when using your ultimate, which lets you use it for just a little bit of extra damage occasionally if you know that you're not going to need it as a survival or revive ult for a while. Then we also build Shared Flask Healing as the cherry on top so that we heal our allies with our flasks. We'll heal them when we ult, and we also have some increased ultimate art gauge generation too when defeating enemies, just let us have the ultimate available as often as we can. All while still having a Wraith Calling Bell in our inventory too, which is again one of Revenant's best offensive options in the game, as silly as that is to say. For upgrading mid-run, other than what I've already mentioned, any power that works off of walking speed works great with the Wraith Calling Bell, and one of the most powerful setups I've ever been in myself in the game was Wraith Calling Bell combined with a weapon passive that was Wraith Spawn while walking, and just a storm of Wraiths every time I use the bell itself, combined with a bunch of other walking effects too as a result. That said, let's dive into the specific relics for this. The guaranteed Old Family Portrait Remembrance relic is really important for making this a support build, and then I'm using the blue, green, white vessel just because it works with my remaining 2 relics. These ones are random rolls to get the best options you can, so you might need to move around your vessels to make it fit depending on what you have yourself. The specific desired effects here then, between these 2 relics are Flask also heals allies, and then also Wraith Calling Bell at the start of Expedition. The rest of the effects on the relics are just extra, and anything that you can get past those that actually affects this build is quite good. Like if you can also fit like a Rune Acquisition boost or a Stone Sword Key at start of Expedition, just things that are generally helpful to a group to really lean into that support role a little bit more. That just about does it for today then everyone. 3 really strong consistent builds for a few Nightfares in Elden Ring Nightreign, and these will all be super strong right from the start of an expedition, even at level 1. The big thing about this game is the snowball of power. Once you get a sort of baseline of power, you can kill the harder enemies quicker, and then that makes you get stronger earlier in your run, which then lets you kill more valuable enemies with the limited time that you have during a day, getting as much power as possible. So realistically, being powerful at the end of your run is heavily based around how powerful you can get in like the first 5 minutes of your run and how much you can snowball that. Of course, the rest of it is somewhat dependent on RNG along the way and what actually drops for you, but this offers a good deal of consistency at the start, and that was the main goal. I hope you've all enjoyed this then, and I hope you enjoy using these builds for yourself too if you try them out in the game. Like if you liked the video, subscribe and the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.